A lot of people think like, oh, you eat really well, so you must have perfect blood sugar balance. Well, I didn't. I also have PCOS, so polycystic ovarian syndrome, which does put you at a higher risk for developing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes just from that hormonal profile that comes with that condition. So it definitely made me take that more seriously. I thought like, well, I'm a nutritionist. I eat better than so many other people, which does not matter, by the way. My body does not know that I'm a nutritionist, and if it needs more or less of something, it's gonna let me know with that blood work. All right, welcome everybody to the Pre-Diet Podcast. I am Allie Virtue, your host and owner of Parkside Nutrition, and I am still on my mission to teach you everything you need to know before you need to hire a nutritionist. Basically, I think trying to put myself out of a job with this podcast, but let's get into it. All right, today we are talking about tips for maintaining healthy blood sugar levels. This is always a really hot topic as far as social media is concerned. You see a lot of posts talking about how to avoid blood sugar spikes and things like that. Well, we're going to kind of not demonize things a little bit. So I'm going to give you very simple, practical tips about how to manage your blood sugar in a really healthy way without getting overwhelming, too much into the science, anything like that. If you do want a really good visual, shameless plug here, go to YouTube and follow me on YouTube, and I'll link it in the description of this podcast episode. But I have a video on there explaining what is normal blood sugar, and it has some good visuals, and it's actually gotten over 50,000 views. So it's a really good educational visual on how blood sugar is supposed to work. So we can kind of learn a little bit more about it instead of just being like, oh my gosh, it's getting high and blah, 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 like that. So trying to take the fear out of these things, just educate in a very simple, practical way. But let's talk about some of the solutions today. Have you ever felt like you were just riding this roller coaster all day long? Energy up, crashes, cravings hit hard, then suddenly you're eating snacks that maybe you don't even want, maybe you don't even like them. Yeah, that's probably your blood sugar talking to you. It's going up, it's going down throughout the day instead of saying, relatively consistent in an optimal range. Yes, it does fluctuate by the time of day, what we eat, if we're exercising, sedentary, stressed, not stressed, lots of factors. Well, today I want to talk about how we can support our blood sugar in a natural way without cutting out all carbs or living on just protein or just fat or just chicken and broccoli, just real doable shifts in your food and habits to make you feel so much better because that's what it's all about. So, first of all, why does blood sugar balance matter? So, it's not just a concern for those who have diabetes, type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes. This really does affect all of us, and it can be tied to a lot of other things that affects all of us, like our mood, our mental health, our emotional health, our energy levels throughout the day, hunger, sugar cravings, salt cravings, belly fat, inflammation. All of those things can, in some way, be tied to how well our blood sugar is managed or not managed. You can kind of think of your blood sugar as essentially your energy levels. This is your energy level kind of flowing through you. It is the sugar in your bloodstream at any given moment. That is the quickest fuel source for your tissues at any given moment. This is the sugar level in your blood, and it feeds a lot of tissues. So you can kind of think of this as maybe like a campfire. So if you don't feed the campfire enough, it will burn out. If you dump a whole bunch of fuel on the fire at one time, it could get a little out of control, flares up. You got a mess on your hands. So we want to keep it nice and consistent. We want to keep that energy level going nice and consistently so I have good focus, good energy, good concentration throughout my days. So here are some key nutrition tips for healthy blood sugar. I'll say nutrition and lifestyle because I'm going to throw a monkey wrench one or one that you probably won't expect at the end. So number one is don't skip meals. Intermittent fasting is different. I don't recommend that for most clients. Some people thrive off of it, but consistent meals, not skipping meals, is a really great place to start when we are trying to have better blood sugar and better energy levels throughout the day. So, starting the day, so having breakfast that has some protein, some fiber, really sets the tone for the day. And I can't tell you how important and how valuable this is when we are trying to decrease sugar cravings and people feel completely powerless when it comes to sugar cravings. This is really crucial. Having enough protein and fiber at breakfast will absolutely help you crush those sugar cravings. A balanced breakfast, less cravings, less snacking. One, if you have a weight loss goal, usually lowers your calories overall, usually makes weight loss easier. But when I say high protein, I mean 30 to 40 grams of protein ideally. If you want to know how much that is, either download a food tracking app or go listen to some previous episodes, and we talk a little bit more in detail about how much protein you need, the amount, the weights, etc. I would also say consider having a savory breakfast. So much of breakfast food that is pushed on us or marketed to us is really, really sweet. And if we think about this from like a marketing standpoint of like, okay, if I want to sell a lot of this, packaged food or product food or anything like that, I need people to buy it. I need people to eat it quite often. So I'm going to make it a little bit higher in sugar. So that's going to set their blood sugar off. It's going to increase their blood sugar, I should say. And then it's going to come crashing down because when our blood sugar gets really high, it's really stressful in the body. And so our body pumps out a bunch of insulin, and that's the hormone that says, "Hey, take that blood sugar that's in the blood and stuff it into tissues." So insulin brings that blood sugar into our tissues. And if our blood sugar gets really, really high, our body pumps out a bunch of insulin. That is also stressful in the body. It can overproduce it, and then we drop our blood sugar too quickly. And that's quite often when people get tired, they get lethargic. They are usually craving some sort of sweet, sugary thing to get their blood sugar back up in a healthier range. So you're kind of riding this roller coaster all day long if we have a lot of those traditional American breakfast foods like cereals, like pancakes, like waffles, things like that. Those are foods that don't have a lot of protein, don't have a lot of, healthy fats or fiber in them, and those are all the things, protein, fat, and fiber that helps keep our blood sugar more balanced throughout the day. So we really kind of need to flip it on its head. So quite often I encourage people to have either a savory breakfast or stop thinking about breakfast in context of just breakfast food. It's just our first meal of the day. It's the first meal that we are breaking our overnight fast with. So try to get a little creative with that. Some of my favorite high protein savory breakfasts are things like egg scrambles, scrambled with vegetables. This could be smoked salmon on toast with some cream cheese or avocado. This could also be a breakfast burrito loaded up with vegetables. That's totally fine too, and like a carb balance or high fiber wrap. The next point to help balance our blood sugar is going to be adding protein, adding fats and carbs to our next point, as far as nutrition tips, are going to be adding protein to our meals, adding healthy fats and fiber to our meals. So, no naked carbs is a great way to think of this. Just don't leave them on their own because they need other parts of foods or other kinds of foods to help balance our body's reaction to them. So, try to add some protein, some healthy fats, and some fiber to our meals and our snacks. Our snacks, ideally, are just little meals, little small meals, but they still have the same kind of composition. So some examples of this could be an apple and nut butter. Nut butter is going to have a little protein, a little fat, and help balance that out. This could be an egg with your toast. This could be rice and beans and avocado mixed up together. Lots of possibilities for that. But make sure you're having those balanced meals, not just naked carbs. The third point here is going to be eat in the right order. So this is one of my favorite tips because even if we're not eating the healthiest stuff, even if we are planning on having dessert and it's not good for us or whatever, we can change our body's reaction in a healthier way and help it out, right? If I'm going to have brownies, I at least can be nice to my body and still have brownies. And how I would do that is I would have the brownie right after a meal, and that meal would have lots of fiber, lots of protein, lots of plants in there, and I would eat those fiber-rich foods first. So eat your vegetables first, then your protein, then your starchy carbohydrates. So those starchy carbohydrates, aka dessert, are last after we've given our body the nutrition it needs, after it's gotten that good protein, that fiber to help balance its reaction to that. So it's not such a sharp spike versus if I start with cake, my body's like, oh man, carbs are coming in, pump out the insulin, let's go. We don't want that blood sugar to get too high. And it starts kind of doing damage control, right? Well, give it some protein, give it some fiber first, and then having that increase, one that slows down digestion. So those protein that help, so that fiber, that the So instead, we want that fiber, we want protein, we want those healthy fats to help slow down digestion. So we don't just dump a bunch of carbs into the system and kind of shock the system and force it to pump out a bunch of insulin and react in a stressful manner. Give it some protein, give it some fiber, some fats. That slows digestion in a really positive way to help us balance our blood sugar. So examples of this could be having an appetizer salad, or if we have a side salad, having that first and then maybe our starchy carbohydrates later, but making sure we're having some sort of vegetables first, followed by protein. That can really set us up for success and it can actually minimize how hard our blood sugar spikes, even if we're having something like pasta. That can make a huge impact. Even if I'm planning to have a big pasta meal, have an appetizer salad first, have some protein with that, and then your blood sugar actually might not rise as steeply or as high, and that can absolutely make us feel a little bit better after the meal. Next one is adding fiber-rich plants. A lot of times we say those vegetables and fiber-rich foods interchangeably. It's not always the case. Spinach actually doesn't have all that much fiber. So if we're just having spinach, if we're just having broccoli, those aren't the most fiber-rich foods. Fiber-rich foods are things that are have kind of like a bony plant structure. So you can think of it as plant bones, right? And these are things like lentils, avocados, nuts, seeds, things like that. Those foods are typically quite high in fiber. And fiber, like I just said, slows digestion in a good way and prevents those blood sugar spikes. And this means you have less of an energy roller coaster throughout the day and more even energy. So, in a whole day, ideally, someone gets at least 25 to 35 grams of fiber per day. And these are from things like some vegetables. Ground flax seeds are a huge source of fiber. So are chia seeds, lentils, beans, avocado, squash, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries are also really good as far as the fruits go. So those ones are my favorite ones to add in. But ideally, we're getting closer to like 10 plus grams of fiber per meal would be a really, really good goal. And if you're like, how on earth am I going to do that? Well, one, you could subscribe to the email list at parksidenutrition.com/subscribe. And there's lots of resources on there, example meal plans, fiber guides, etc. But you can also download the Chronometer app and start tracking your food, and that will give you a good idea of how much fiber you're getting in a day, and it will also break it down by meal as well. Next is hydrating and being mindful of the sweetened drinks. Quite often when people start tracking their food, they just don't know where their carbs are coming from, so they don't think that they're consuming too many. We just don't know, right? It's like if you don't know where your money goes every month, but you never look at your bank statements. It's just you don't know. You got to be informed. You got to take a look, right? So even natural fruit juices can spike your blood sugar. If they don't have the fiber in them, if they're not, with the pulp, that's still just a lot of carbohydrates straight into your system. It's very quick to absorb. There's no fiber slowing the absorption down. So it can just be more carbs than you think. And we just need to keep an eye on that. So maybe instead look for more water, sparkling water, carbonated water, flavored options, herbal teas, protein smoothies, things like that. It's kind of like our staples. It's not that we can only have that, but like as our normal routine, maybe we just have those a little bit more often. And then number 6 here is gain more muscle mass. So I'll get into my personal story a little bit, but muscle mass soaks up all the glucose, not all of it. Your muscles are fantastic glucose sinks. What I mean by this is your muscles are really good at pulling the sugar out of our bloodstream. So if our blood sugar is really high and we don't have a lot of muscle mass, our body doesn't have a lot of places to put that sugar to store that sugar. Versus if I do have a lot of muscle mass and my blood sugar starts to get high, I have more muscle mass that can pull that sugar out of my blood and bring it down to a safer, lower level. This is a really, really good thing. So, how do we do this? We incorporate weightlifting, we incorporate resistance training, maybe some sprints. That could be on a bike, it could be running, it could be on a rower. Lots of ways to help us build that muscle, but we need to move. We need to actively try to build that muscle. That comes with increasing our protein as well. And I'll be honest, it's hard to gain muscle. It's hard. It doesn't happen overnight. So please take every opportunity to try to gain muscle, especially if you are in the situation of tired of trying to lose weight or tired of being hungry or tired of dieting, anything like that. Switch gears, increase your protein, increase your calories. Don't eat like a jerk. Still eat responsibly in the sense of giving your body good nutrition. It's not just dirty calories that we're trying to increase here. It's not the situation I'm talking about. But try to gain some muscle mass. Work with a personal trainer, work with someone who knows what they're doing as far as hypertrophy programs or look into a program that is for building muscle. And it's a really, really good thing to invest that time to try to build muscle. This is just giving your body more tools. The more muscles you have, the more volume, bigger size muscles you have, the more tools your body has to help you manage and prevent getting really high blood sugar levels. Now, this is assuming that you're still managing your stress, you're getting adequate sleep, of course. I'm not saying this is just a free pass to get huge, gain a bunch of muscle, and then eat whatever you want. I'm definitely not saying that. I've still seen people and worked with people that have a decent amount of muscle mass, are very active. Their sleep is not great, their overall diet is not the best, and they can definitely be working towards that pre-diabetes range. Not good. So you need to consider all of these factors, not just say like, well, I'm good at this one, so the rest don't matter. It's not the case. And this is where my personal story comes up. So a lot of people think like, oh, you eat really well, so you must have perfect blood sugar balance. Well, I didn't last year when I got my blood work done. My blood sugar levels had been okay when I was historically, when I was in grad school, when learning about this stuff, I started to test my blood sugar in the morning and it wasn't in an optimal range. It was kind of in the 90s to low 100s. And for fasting, I wanted it to be a little lower when we're talking about optimal health. I'm in my 20s, life's great. Yes, grad school is very stressful, so maybe that was a factor. Maybe I wasn't sleeping enough, but I was still very active, still, lifting weights and doing all the things. So I was a little bit surprised by that. It did come back down when I finished grad school and less stress. So that I think was the biggest factor for me. And so it leveled out, was in a good spot. Had lab work done again when I was gaining muscle, when I was in a muscle building phase, and I took it very seriously, increased my calories, followed macros, increased my protein, and lifted heavy to try to build muscle for at least 3 months. And that was fantastic. That was the best my blood work has ever looked. And then I got my blood work done this past year, probably about 6 months ago. And my A1C, which hemoglobin A1C is a blood marker that measures the average blood sugar for the last 3 months. And so mine had increased. And it was just on the edge of healthy and to the point where my practitioner was not worried in the slightest. She's like, just don't let it get worse. And I'm like, well, I really want it to be better. So I don't just want to wait here and say, hopefully it doesn't get worse. Like, let's try proactively try to be better at this. So I thought to myself, I'm like, what has changed? I still CrossFit. I don't lift nearly as heavy. I don't have as much muscle mass, that's for sure, because I don't lift as heavy as consistently. I don't really track my macros anymore, so I'm probably eating less, but I'm also probably eating less protein. So I'm just thinking about all these factors, trying to figure out like what was the big game changer here. And I think the biggest part was probably my muscle mass. I was still active, but even though I'm active now, my active body has less muscle on it. So therefore, it's one, not burning as many calories. Because if I had a 20-pound weight vest on my frame or 20 pounds more of muscle, that would mean I'm pulling a lot more blood sugar out of my system. That would mean I'm burning a lot more calories. So there's a little bit of a relationship there. Right now, personally, I really value my relationship with food more than any aesthetic goal, or I'm still conscious of my health goals, obviously, but I'm not really motivated or in the phase of life to really track macros or anything like that. So all of this to say, I think the biggest factor in that is that I just have less muscle mass. So I have less glucose sinks to kind of soak those things up. Probably at the time could have been a little bit more serious about my carb intake. It wasn't high by any means, but I was probably still eating like I was lifting really heavy versus I'm not lifting as heavy. I'm not nearly as active. That probably contributed to the slight increase in blood sugar and average blood sugar. I also have PCOS, so polycystic ovarian syndrome, which does put you at a higher risk for developing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes just from that hormonal profile that comes with that condition. So it definitely made me take that more seriously. I thought like, well, I'm a nutritionist. I eat better than so many other people, which does not matter, by the way. My body does not know that I'm a nutritionist, and if it needs more or less of something, it's gonna let me know with that blood work. All of this to say, it is a good reminder to get your blood work done on a regular basis because your body does not care that you try so much harder than other people. It only knows itself. And if my body is having more sugar in its system than it needs, I need to listen to that and make those adjustments. And those adjustments in my lifestyle, I think, have been really impactful. And some of those things are going for a walk after meals. Even 10 minutes can make a noticeable impact in your blood sugar levels. It doesn't have to be intense. Another kind of thing in the back of my head I try to think of is moving every hour. It doesn't have to be, again, intense, but just keeping movement, that little movement adds up. And it's just quite easy to be pretty sedentary at our desk for absolute hours. And if our blood sugar is creeping up or just had a meal, it's really helpful for our body to just move around a little bit. If nothing else, to just get some circulation going and wake us up, especially if we are feeling a little bit tired. Getting a little movement in can be really, really, really helpful. Getting enough sleep. Sleep deprivation means more insulin resistance. And we mentioned insulin is the hormone that brings blood sugar into our cells to help lower our blood sugar levels. And if our cells are not listening to insulin, aka insulin resistance, that blood sugar just stays high. It's not able to lower itself by shoving sugar into the cells. So it's really, really important. This also comes with more sugar cravings, which is just not fun, right? And we really need to focus on getting enough sleep, getting good quality sleep. At least 7 hours is my kind of cutoff for clients as a goal. Some people know that they need 9, so let's make that a goal if you are that type of person. But this is huge. You cannot out diet poor sleep. I'll say that over and over again. You absolutely have to have good quality sleep to make sure everything else is working well as well. Managing stress. So cortisol spikes, our stress hormone cortisol, can absolutely increase our blood sugar. That's honestly for a good reason. If I'm stressed out and running from a lion, I need my blood sugar to be high. I need blood sugar high in my blood so it can feed my muscles so I can run away from that lion. So there's not too many lions around, so even work stress can trigger increased stress, increased cortisol, and can raise my blood sugar that way. So this is where actively working on having daily stress relief, strategies at hand, whether that's breath work, walking, journaling, just quiet time. We really need those non-food methods to manage our stress. I can't say this over and over again. Food is a lot of things, but it's not very effective at managing our stress levels for optimal health long term. It might help a little bit in the short term, but as a long-term strategy, if I'm really stressed with work, a really delicious snack is not going to solve my work problems. It might give me a little bit of a reprieve, but try to keep that in mind when we're trying to figure out what the problem really is and what the accurate solution needs to be. Go outside, get some movement, change your scenery, enjoy some hobbies, meditation, journaling, call a friend, whatever it is for you. But have those on standby and have those kind of a ready-made list of like, okay, how am I going to manage my stress when things get a little dicey? Next is consistent routine. Like you've probably figured out by now, I'm not the biggest fan of intermittent fasting because I think people need more practice at having regular meals at regular time intervals. And I think this really helps to regulate the hunger and energy, level cycle, whatever throughout the day. And so we prevent ourselves from getting too stuffed or too starved. That roller coaster of like too full and then starving ourselves is just not fun, for one. And I think if we are a little bit more consistent with those meals, we also usually make better choices. I mean, and as a result, have probably better balanced blood sugar versus haphazardly throwing meals together or not really having a plan or any kind of thought pattern behind it. It's just a little bit more of a haphazard strategy to things, right? So let's try to avoid this crash and binge eating cycle and just having more consistent meals throughout the day and practicing that. Treat it as a practice. We don't need to be perfect with it, but we do need to practice feeding ourselves on a regular interval, as silly as that might sound. All right, so let's go over some real life examples and snack ideas. So some snacks, I just did a whole podcast on healthy snacks, so definitely go back and listen to a previous episode, but I'll mention a few here as well. So remember we said no naked carbs. So apple and peanut butter, boiled egg and carrots or cucumber, something like that. Greek yogurt is a great one, and they come in really portable snack sizes. You can get 15 grams of protein out of just one serving, and that would be awesome. And that would be even better if we can add some like ground flax seeds to it, chia seeds, maybe an ounce of nuts and seeds, berries like blueberries, blackberries, raspberries would be fantastic fiber add. Or a protein shake and banana. I personally like the ready-made protein shakes. I think they taste better. I think they have a better consistency. They're ready to go. I don't love the powder plus water combination. It's fine in an emergency, but I don't love it. So why not have something I enjoy a little bit more? And that can absolutely be a half a protein shake too. Sometimes they're too filling for people, and half of one is fine. Half of a banana is fine. It doesn't have to be a huge snack, but that's a good balance. Hummus and cucumbers. Leftovers of your meal is honestly my favorite snack because it also encourages me to be mindful not to overeat on my meal if I am getting full. And then I can just save the remainder of that meal that maybe I had for lunch as a snack. And that could be my pre-dinner snack. And then I'm able to make a logical choice for dinner and take my time to actually cook a dinner instead of shoving things in my face. I say this because it happens. It does happen to me all the time. So I'm consciously making a choice to have a snack, and then usually my dinner turns out a lot better and more balanced as well. Some sample meals: grilled salmon, quinoa, roasted broccoli, some olive oil. That's checking all my boxes. Maybe a turkey wrap in those high fiber wraps, plus some vegetables, handful of spinach or lettuce, some avocado, plus a protein source. Done. Lentil soup with a side of tahini dressing. We got some plant-based protein options there. Good fiber. That's a great option too. All right, to recap, you don't need to obsess over sugar content or restrict everything. You just need to eat in a way that supports your energy levels, your activity levels, your mood, your hunger. Honestly, feeding myself to have good moods and good emotions and good focus day to day is highly motivating versus like the number on the scale or things like that. If you are fueling your body for absolute optimal performance, because we get to choose our human experience for the majority. So why not put good food that makes me feel great so I can get the most out of every day? This isn't about perfection. This is about small changes that give your body the support it needs. Pay your nutrition bills first, and you will feel so much better. I promise. All right, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. Please share this podcast with a friend on your social media. This greatly helps me grow the show. And I would also love if you could leave me a review on wherever you listen to this podcast. Leave a comment, tag me on social media. Instagram is ali.parkside nutrition. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you have any recommendations for a topic or you want a question answered, please feel free to email me, ali@parksidenutrition.com. And make sure you're subscribed to the email list at parksidenutrition.com/subscribe to get access to that free shit Friday email. Goes out every single Friday, plus instant access to the subscriber exclusive library as well with a ton of nutrition resources. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.